The wind dragged dust across the endless fields, scratching against dry Zimlu like a whisper of sorrow. Out there, under a harsh and unforgiving sun, worked a girl named Mayara. No one remembered when she first came. Some said she was sold, some said she ran away, but no one cared enough to ask. Mayara worked harder than anyone. From dawn until the sky burned orange, she carried sacks of grain heavier than her own body. Her thin arms trembled with every step, her breath shallow, but she never stopped. The landowner, a cruel man named Hargrove, didn't believe in rest, only results. "Faster!" he would shout, cracking his whip against the wooden fence, the sound enough to make even the strongest men flinch. But Mayara didn't flinch. She couldn't afford to, because every coin she earned, every single one, went to keep her little sister alive. Back in a crumbling shack beyond the fields, her sister Yuna lay on a thin blanket, too weak to stand. Illness had drained the color from her face, leaving behind only quiet hope in her eyes. "Did you eat today?" Yuna would always ask, and Mayara would always smile. Yes, even when the truth was no. Days turned into weeks and Mayara grew weaker. Her steps slowed. Her hands bled more. Her body began to betray her. But she kept going, until the day everything changed. The sun was at its peak when Mayara stumbled. The sack she carried slipped from her shoulders, crashing into the dirt. Grain spilled everywhere like wasted effort. She dropped to her knees, her vision spinning, her breath refusing to come. "Get up!" Hargrove barked from a distance. "You don't get paid for resting." But Mayara couldn't move. Her body had reached its limit. She closed her eyes, ready to accept whatever came next. Punishment, hunger, maybe even death. Then a shadow fell over her. Not the shadow of the sun. Someone else. A pair of worn boots stepped into her blurred vision. Slowly she looked up. A man stood there. Tall, silent, dust-covered. A revolver rested at his side. Not for show, but for use. His coat moved slightly in the hot wind, and his sharp eyes studied her, not with pity, but something deeper, understanding. He crouched beside her and lifted the fallen sack as if it weighed nothing. Then in a calm, steady voice he said, "Let me carry that load." The field went quiet. Workers stopped. Even Hargrove fell silent. Mayara blinked, confused. "No," she whispered weakly. "You don't understand. I have to—" "You don't," he interrupted gently. Something in his voice. It wasn't forceful. It wasn't demanding. It was certain. He extended his hand. For a moment, Mayara hesitated. No one had ever offered her help before, not without expecting something in return. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely audible. The man gave a faint smile. "Because someone should have done it sooner." His name was Calder Voss, a gunslinger, a man whispered about in towns far and wide, not always kindly. Some called him dangerous, some called him a ghost. But in that moment, he was just a man helping a girl stand. Calder didn't just carry the sack. He carried all of them. Back and forth across the field, he worked without complaint, without pause. The other workers stared in disbelief as the mysterious gunslinger did the labor of 5 men. Hargrove watched carefully. Suspicious. "You think you can just walk in here and do as you please?" He finally snapped, stepping forward. Calder didn't stop working. "You're overworking them," he said calmly. She nearly collapsed. "That's none of your business." Calder dropped the sack in front of him, dust rising between them. "It is now." The tension thickened. Everyone knew what came next when a gunslinger stood his ground. But Calder didn't reach for his weapon. He didn't need to. His presence alone was enough. Hargrove scoffed, stepping back. "Fine, do the work. But no one gets paid extra." Calder tilted his head slightly. "Then I'll pay her myself." That night, for the first time in months, Mayara returned home early. And she didn't return empty-handed. She brought food. Real food. Bread, rice, even a small piece of dried meat. Yuna's eyes widened in disbelief. "Where did you—" "Someone helped me," Mayara said softly. A knock came at the door. Both sisters froze. Calder stood outside. He didn't step in until invited. He didn't speak much either. But over the next few days, he kept coming back. Not as a savior, but as someone who refused to look away. He fixed their roof, brought medicine, and quietly took on the hardest work in the fields, shielding Mayara from breaking again. Slowly, things began to change. Yuna grew stronger. Mayara smiled more. And for the first time in years, hope returned, but peace doesn't last long in places like that. One evening, a group of armed men rode into the fields. Debt collectors. Hargrove owed them money and couldn't pay. So they decided to take what they could. Land, crops, people. When they saw Mayara, they made their choice. She'll cover part of the debt, their leader said with a cruel grin. Mayara stepped back, fear freezing her in place. No, please. Before anyone could move, a gun clicked. Calder stepped forward, his revolver now drawn. You're not taking anyone. The leader laughed. And who's going to stop us, you? Calder's eyes didn't waver. Yes. What followed was quick. Not reckless. Not chaotic. Precise. Every move calculated. Every shot intentional. When the dust settled, the men were gone. And no one dared return. The fields were quiet again. But this time, not with fear, with relief. Days later, Calder prepared to leave. That's what gunslingers did. They never stayed. Mayara stood beside him at the edge of the road. You don't have to go, she said quietly. Calder looked at the horizon. I do. Why? He paused, then said softly, because this place doesn't need a gunslinger anymore. Mayara swallowed the lump in her throat. But I might. For a moment, he almost stayed. Almost. But then he reached into his coat and handed her a small pouch of coins. Then carry this, he said. She shook her head. I don't want money. Calder gave a faint smile. It's not just money. She opened the pouch. Inside was a folded paper. A deed. To the land. Her land. Tears filled her eyes. You gave me everything. Calder stepped back. No, he said quietly. I just helped you carry the load. And with that, he walked away, leaving behind not just a field, but a future. And under a kinder sun, Mayara no longer worked herself to death, because someone once stopped, looked at her and said, let me carry that load.